Good afternoon. Welcome to the Quality Assurance Scheme for Advocates Crime Scheme Registration webinar. My name is Richard Williams. I'm a Senior Policy Executive at the SRA. In terms of what we're going to cover today, we'll want to look at some of the basic principles of the scheme, particularly for those people who haven't been closely following the development of QASA. We'll then work through whether or not an advocate needs to register with the scheme, and then if they do, we'll look at exactly what the registration process involves and some registration Q&As, and then, as I mentioned before, there'll be an opportunity for you to raise any questions in relation to the scheme or in relation to the registration process at the end of this webinar. So, in terms of the basic principles of the scheme, why are we where we are with QASA? So, the scheme has been devised to respond to concerns about the standards of advocacy in criminal courts. The scheme will ensure that the performance of all advocates are measured against the same set of standards regardless of the advocate's previous education and training. This is an criminal advocacy-wide profession scheme. It applies to barristers as well as solicitors, and it applies to anybody undertaking criminal advocacy. The scheme is in the public interest. The repercussions of bad advocacy are kind of very commonplace. What QASA will do is ensure that all criminal advocates appearing in courts in England and Wales are competent and have met minimum standards. In terms of the architecture of QASA, it's founded around a single common set of advocacy standards which apply to all advocates. There are 4 levels within the scheme. Level 1 involves work in the magistrate's court and generally involves the less complex criminal advocacy work, whilst level 4 involves the most serious cases in the Crown Court. So the work kind of escalates upwards, and the complexity and seriousness of the work escalates as we move up each QASA level. Advocates may progress through the 4 levels subject to high rights of audience by demonstrating through assessment that they meet the required standard for the next level. So QASA isn't a static scheme. There are opportunities for career progression, there are opportunities for development, and the way in which this is accounted for is by an advocate progressing up levels. There are 3 methods of assessment and accreditation within the scheme. Level 1 will be assessed and accredited through what we're defining as assessed CPD. Now, we will be issuing further guidance on how we plan to do this in the next few months. Level 2 will be by assessment organisation. This method really applies to those advocates who are wishing to undertake a non-trial work at level 2, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we come to the registration process section. Levels 2B, 3, 4 and 4QC. The way in which we determine whether an advocate is competent or not will be by judicial evaluation only. So, in terms of whether or not an advocate needs to register with QASA, the basic answer to this is yes, if you wish to undertake criminal advocacy. We now have SRA Quality Assurance for Advocates crime regulations in place. They will be in version 8 of the SRA handbook, and those regulations clearly state, as you'll see on the screen there, that you may not undertake criminal advocacy unless accredited to do so in accordance with these regulations. So, if you wish to undertake criminal advocacy, you will require QASA accreditation, and in order to obtain that accreditation, you will need to register with the scheme. So what do we mean by criminal advocacy? The definition that you see on the screen now, we've consulted on 2 or 3 times, so this has now been approved as part of the Legal Services Board overall approval of the scheme. So, if the work that you undertake falls within the definition of criminal advocacy, you will need to register with QASA and seek accreditation. The definition is now on the screen. So if the work that you undertake falls within that definition, you will be required to seek QASA accreditation. registration is phased. We undertook a notification exercise last year, and that told us that we expect around 12,000 criminal advocates who we regulate to seek QASA accreditation. We've done some mapping around those figures, and we understand where those advocates will be based, which circuit they will be located in, and as a result, we've decided that registration will be phased. And on the screen now you can see the phases, the circuits, and the dates in which those registration windows are open. So at the moment, if you are an advocate and you're undertaking criminal advocacy in the Midland and Western circuits, the registration window to seek QASA accreditation is now open, and you have until the 9th of March next year in order to come in and register with the scheme. Phase 2, which is essentially the largest volume of advocates, around 7,000 in total, registration launches on the 10th of March 2014 and lasts to the 13th of June 2014. The final circuits in Phase 3, which are the Northern, North Eastern and Wales and Chester circuits, their registration window opens on the 30th of June 2014 and closes on the 3rd of October. So plenty of time for the advocates in the Midland and Western circuits to register. So now we've determined whether or not as an advocate you need to register with the scheme. What's your first sort of port of call? Where do you go to? So the first place you should go to is the SRA website. There is a web address on there, www.sra.org.uk/QASA. That's the first place you should go to. From there, you'll be directed where you need to go to in order to register for the scheme. Really important point of note here is that in order to register for QASA, you will need an active My SRA account. If you don't know whether you have an active My SRA account or you have any concerns around activating your My SRA account, then the web address at the bottom of that slide is the place to go for further information on helping you in terms of your My SRA account activation. So in order to register, you will need an active My SRA account. So this is a screenshot of the QASA section of the SRA website. On this page there will be all sorts of helpful information, latest updates, FAQs and access to the QASA handbook. The QASA handbook itself contains everything you need to know in terms of how QASA will work as a scheme. It's a good point of reference, and certainly you should familiarise yourself with the contents of that handbook in terms of registering with the scheme. So as you can clearly see on the left hand side there is a box that states where you must go to and the button to press in order to progress your QASA registration. So the red ring there highlights the Go to QASA Accreditation Manager button. This button will take you to a sort of third-party site whereby you'll be able to begin the login process. Again, an important note there is who must register. All advocates wishing to undertake criminal advocacy are eligible to register. In terms of our regulations, they further state that you must have a current practicing certificate in order to register for QASA. So again, it's worth looking at those regulations. So once you click that button, you'll be taken through to this next screen, the SRA QASA Accreditation Manager login screen. In order to log in, you'll need to use your current MySRA username and password, and the red ringed area there clearly identifies where you'll need to insert your username and password. There are links there below each of those boxes, which will enable you to access further information if you've forgotten your SRA username or forgotten your SRA password. Alternatively, you can contact us on the number on the screen, 0870 606 2555, and there will be someone available to help you remember your username and password. So once you've completed those two boxes, there is a green login button, which obviously you press to log into the scheme. The next page you're presented with within the QASA accreditation system is this page, the QASA home page. So this is essentially your hub. From here you can access anything you really need to know, understand, or do within the system and within your QASA accreditation. The first thing you'll be asked to do is to register with the scheme. And you can see there is a green underlined register now button. In order to begin your registration process, you will need to press this button. The next page you will access is the registration page. Here you will be able to begin the registration process. So registration will essentially involve completing 2 questions and making a payment. Now the next few slides will talk through what's involved with those questions, how you can come to an answer to those questions, and what's involved with payment. So the very first box that you will need to complete at registration is to make sure that a full name is there. Now, we fully anticipate that boxes, sort of the full name and the SRA ID numbers will be pre-populated. If you get into this page and those boxes are empty, please contact us using the number I've previously given. So the first check is really to check that the full name and SRID boxes have been completed. You'll see there that there's a section called Getting in Touch with You. We anticipate that the majority of your interaction and our interaction with you will be through this online system, and will be through us sending you emails to confirm your status, to confirm what needs to happen, to remind you that you need to do things. So it's absolutely vitally important we have an up-to-date email from you. So if that email box is empty again, please again contact us, because we'll need to ensure that we have an up-to-date email from you. So some key points there in terms of making sure that boxes are complete. So the first question that you're presented with in terms of completing the registration is selecting your registration level. As I mentioned before, the scheme and the work within the scheme is broken down into 4 levels. We will be asking each advocate at the point of registration to self-certify at the level in which they believe they wish to seek QASA accreditation. So there's a couple of key points to remember here, is that in order to register at level 2 and above, you will need higher rights of audience. This is because level 2 work and above involves the Crown Courts, and solicitors need high rights of audience in order to access those particular courts. So if you wish to register at levels 2 and above, you need to have high rights of audience. If you are a QC and a solicitor, and you wish to apply and register at level 4 QC, then the process you will need to follow is that you need to select level 4 and complete the registration process. We will then, on receipt of you submitting verification of your QC status, we will manually upgrade you to level 4 QC in terms of your registration level. So when we receive your information, we will upgrade you. So you'll see here that there is a drop-down list Now, when you come to select your registration level, you'll be presented with a number of options. There you go. There's level 1, level 2, trial A, trial capable, and all of the levels there in which you can initially register at. There are a number of factors you can take into account when determining and choosing the level in which you wish to register at. The first point is really to consider the type of cases that you regularly deal with from the cases in the levels table. Now, the levels table is in the scheme handbook, and it will basically describe the types of cases that fall within each of the QASA levels. So the first point of call is really to look at that levels table and think about the type of work you do. If you do work across a number of levels, you may want to think about the frequency of the work that you do at each level, how competent you felt performing at it, and how regularly you're going to undertake that work. So answering those sort of 3 basic questions will allow you to determine the most appropriate level at which you can register with the scheme. So this slide is a very brief snapshot of the levels and the subsequent cases within them. So this is an excellent reference point for you to determine what level you should register, because it breaks down the work into criminal advocacy, into work into various cases. So again, that's in the Screen Handbook. You'll be able to download these slides as a PDF as a reference point. So you would have noted from the screenshot and the drop-down list that there is a level 2A and a level 2B registration option. I just wanted to spend a few moments looking at the difference between those options. So in terms of level 2, research that we've undertaken previously has identified that although a number of solicitors have their higher rights of audience, as a result of their practice pattern, they do not undertake on a regular basis full trial work. They do non-trial work. So as part of the development of the scheme, we've built in a registration level and a way in which advocates who undertake non-trial work can be assessed as competent. So if you're thinking of registering at level 2 and you know that you're not undertaking trials or do not wish to undertake trials, the option for you really is to register at level 2A. This will allow you to do all of the level 2 non-trial work, all work at level 1 and non-trial work at level 3. Please note though, as part of registering at level 2A, you'll be required to attend an approved assessment centre to be assessed against all of the standards in order to be fully accredited and re-accredited. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in the next few slides. So if you, having looked at the levels table, looked at the type of cases that are in the level 2, and you are frequently undertaking trial work, then your registration level is level 2B. Slight difference in the way in which you'll be accredited and re-accredited, that will be purely through judicial assessment. So you will need to obtain a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 3 criminal advocacy evaluation forms, CAFEs, in consecutive effective trials in order to be accredited and re-accredited. So you're essentially being, your competency is being assessed in live trial settings by a judge. Again, a very brief reminder of how to register at level 4 QC. So in order to register at level 4 QC, please select level 4 from the drop-down options, and on completion of your registration, submit verification of your QC status via email to quasa@sra.org.uk. When we receive the verification, we will register you at level 4 QC. I mentioned on the previous but one slide that advocates who are undertaking non-trial work who wish to register with the scheme can do so at level 2A. I've explained the reasons why we've made that distinction at level 2A, and the need for a way in which advocates can be assessed outside of the live judicial evaluation process. So the way in which we've decided to do that, and again this has been consulted on, is that we'll be asking advocates at level 2A to attend an approved assessment centre. They will go to the approved assessment centre. They will be assessed against all of the standards. So on successful completion, you will be fully accredited at level 2A. We understand that there may be some concern around how much attending an approved assessment centre may cost. We're firmly committed to ensure that the costs of attending an approved assessment centre does not have a disproportionate impact on any individual or group of solicitors. So in terms of if you're an advocate thinking about registering at level 2A, what you might want to do next is, well, the phase one, you're on the Midlands and Western circuit. Your window for registration is open until, sorry, that should read the 9th of March on the screen. That's the 9th of March. Should be open to the 9th of March. We envisage releasing further information about the costs of assessment centres sometime around Christmas. So there's plenty of time for you to wait for the information we're providing and make a decision as to what course of action you take. Okay. In terms of making a decision around what level you register at, the scheme handbook points to this process of reasoned decision. So we would expect that all advocates must reach a reasoned decision as to the level at which they register and be able to justify their decision if asked to by their regulator. So this is being applied across the scheme. We will, in certain circumstances and to certain advocates, we may be asking for you to describe the process in which you came to the conclusion that you are a level 2, 3, 4. Again, further details on how that process will be managed will be available shortly. So as part of your decision-making process, you need to come to a reasoned decision as to the level in which you selected for registration. So, the second section of your registration process is selecting your circuit. England and Wales has been broken down into circuits. We will be asking you to select the circuit in which you practice. So clearly we've broken registration down into each phase, so we would expect that advocates would be selecting the circuit for the registration window that is currently open. So any advocates registering now, they would be selecting either the Midlands circuit or the Western circuit. Again, there is a drop. The first horizontal red ringed box there is a drop-down list of options. You can click on that and there will be all of the circuits within the scheme available for you to pick. The final section on the registration page is the declaration. Now, as part of the registration process, we'll be asking advocates to tick the 4 boxes that are highlighted on the screen. The declarations relate to the fact that the information you're providing is, to the best of your knowledge, correct. It's to recognise the fact that you've read the SRA QASA regulations. It's to ensure that you understand that we may ask for further information in verifying anything within your QASA accreditation, and also that from time to time we may well publish a list of QASA accredited advocates. The only details that we will essentially publish are the name of the advocate, the level, and their circuit. There will be we don't intend to publish any further information. So you will need to tick all of those boxes the declaration boxes in order to proceed with your registration. So once you've completed the 2 questions, once you've checked that the details in the boxes that we talked about are correct, once you've selected your registration level, and once you've selected your circuit and completed the declaration boxes, there is a green submit button. So that's the next button that you press. So in terms of some helpful advice around which circuit should I choose, to choose your circuit, there is a map available to help you determine where you currently undertake the majority of your criminal advocacy work. That map is now on the screen. You'll be able to see there the phases and circuits. So we hope by that map you'll be able to determine which circuit you practice in, and therefore which phase you will need to register. So it's worth having a look at that to determine exactly whereabouts you are in the country and which phase you fall into. So we're aware that there are a number of advocates who practice in more than one circuit. Their practice patterns may take them across the country. They're in kind of no fixed particular circuit. The advice that we're giving at this stage in terms of registration is that you should register with the circuit that provides you with the best chance of obtaining the number of required assessments within the registration period. So if you are undertaking criminal advocacy in live trials across the country, then you'll need to think about whereabouts you're likely to be able to access the required number of trials in order for you to be accredited within the scheme. So again, there is further information on the declaration there. So once you've clicked the green submit button, you will be taken through to a World Pay site. There will be a fee for registering with QASA. We have worked incredibly hard here to ensure that the fees in which we're asking advocates to pay are as low as possible. One of the advantages of having an online system to manage your QASA accreditation is that we can minimise kind of human involvement with this, and that's why we've been able to drive some of the prices, some of the fees down to as low as they are. But in order for your registration to be processed, you will need to make a payment using the World Pay facility that's within the IT system. Again, it's all very secure, so you'll have no worries about that. Once you have completed your payment, you will then be taken back to your home page. There now will be a slight difference in terms of the information that you can see on that home page. And I've ringed the first ring here under My Accreditations now gives you an overview of your accreditation status. So in this particular screenshot, an advocate has registered at level 2B. That means they're undertaking trials. So in accordance with the scheme guidance, at registration we have given them the status of provisional accreditation. This means they now have, and I'll put a green arrow on the screen so you can see what I'm pointing to here. There you will have an expiry date in terms of your accreditation. So basically, from the point in which you registered and the date in which you registered, you will effectively have a period of 24 months if you're registering at levels 2, 3, 4 and 4QC to go away and obtain the required number of competent judicial evaluations in order to allow us to determine whether you're competent or not. So the system will give you an automatic expiry date for the time to do that as well. We've built in a reminder system into your QASA accreditation status as well. So at various points through that 24-month period, we will send out reminders to remind you, if you haven't done anything, you need to go away and do obtain judicial evaluations or attend an assessment centre if you're registering at level 2A, and they will kind of count down and clock up and towards that accreditation expiry date. So it's important to kind of bear in mind when your provisional status expires. On registration, you will also be sent an email which will explain your next steps and explain and tell you what that accreditation expiry date is. So the other area on this screen that I've highlighted is the application section. So if you're an advocate who's doing trial work, in order for us to assess that you're competent, you will need to be judicially evaluated in live trials, a live trial. The way in which we do that is through the judge assessing your performance against the key 9 standards within a criminal advocacy evaluation form. We fully expect that judges would return that completed evaluation form to us at the SRA. However, there may well be instances where the judge hands you back that form. Where the green arrow is pointing now is the button that you press in order to upload a copy of that criminal advocacy evaluation form. Now, if you click that button, it will take you through a series of screen, and there is screenshots, and there is a number of helpful in-screen guidance to help you upload your case. So it's just important to kind of be familiar with that button if a judge should hand you back. But as I said, we fully expect judges to return the forms to us at the SRA. So what happens after registration? So if you registered at level 1 and you've completed your registration, you will automatically receive full accreditation for a period of 5 years. There are therefore no immediate and pressing actions that you need to undertake. If you wish to register at level 2A and you already have your high rights of audience and you obtain them before the 1st of April 2010, we will, on selection of registering at level 2A, we will give you provisional accreditation at level 2A. So your next steps after registration, and within that expiry window that I pointed out, you will, within 24 months, need to attend an approved assessment centre, and once you're assessed as competent, you need to apply for full accreditation. On successful application for full accreditation, you will be fully accredited at level 2A for 5 years. If you obtained your high rights of audience after the 1st of April 2010, in recognition of you recently obtaining your high rights of audience and the assessment for level 2 being very similar to that high rights of assessment, we will automatically give you full accreditation at level 2 for a period of 5 years, should you so wish. Again, there are no immediate steps after registration. If you want to register at level 2B, again, we award, on successful completion of your registration, we give you provisional accreditation. You'll then, within a 24-month period, need to obtain a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 3 CAFEs out of your first 3 level 2 consecutive effective trials. Again, this is summarised in the handbook, pages 23 to 25, so it might be worth you becoming familiar with those. Again, registration level 3, after successful completion of registration, you're awarded provisional accreditation, and then you have to go away and get the required number of judicial evaluations within your 24-month period. That applies to both level 3, 4 and 4 QC. So In terms of further help, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have a QASA section of the SRA website that's dedicated to helping you understand the scheme and its requirements. The scheme handbook is there. There are now registration Q&As up there, so please go away and have a look. Should you have any kind of issues, you can email us at quasar@sra.org.uk, or you can call our contact centre on 0870 606 255. We have a dedicated QASA team that will be able to talk through any issues you may have around registration or the wider scheme. So we're just about to sort of take a very short break, so I can have a look at the questions if you've raised any, and then within sort of 1 or 2 minutes we'll come back online and we'll start working through, and hopefully I'll answer some of the questions for you. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for raising so many kind of interesting and varied questions. I'm going to try and work through some of the key themes that are emerging now in the remaining time. We'll do our best to sort of get through them. There are quite a few. So again, if we don't get a chance to answer them all, we will take these away and we'll respond to you individually over the course of the next few weeks. So there's a number of questions around the fees in terms of registration. A full list of fees throughout the scheme, not just registration, for progression and for reaccreditation, is available on our website. So if you go to www.sra.org/QASA, there should be a tab on the left-hand side that outlines the fees available, the fees that we're charging for the scheme. A number of you have asked about the current judicial review that is currently happening on the scheme that is very much in the news. As far as we're concerned, we've gone live, and until we are told otherwise, the scheme will remain live, and we will still require advocates to register in accordance with their particular phase. A number of questions from individuals who work from within sort of local authorities or other kind of sort of health and safety executives. We get this question asked quite a lot. Using the definition of criminal advocacy, particularly in terms of where the work emanates from, is that we don't expect individuals, say local authorities, solicitors, people working for the Health and Safety Executive, the Environment Agency, to require QASA accreditation. That's currently our understanding, is that we don't think you require QASA accreditation. A number of you asking around what happens if I miss the deadline, particularly for phase 1 or any of the later deadlines. We have an extension period built into the scheme. Within your QASA accreditation page, your home page within the IT system, there is a button which you can press that states, allows you to apply for an extension. So if, for example, that you're going away on maternity leave, or you're taking a career break, or for whatever reason you're going to miss the registration deadline, you can request an extension to that deadline. If you go onto your into the system, you'll be able to follow the instructions there. So, more generally, we'll kind of grant those extensions, because obviously we want people to come into the scheme. So, the key point around extensions, though, is that you'll need to tell us before the expiry date of your accreditation. So, for example, if you've registered, we've given you provisional accreditation, say at level 3, and you're coming to the end of your 24-month period, you need to tell us before the expiry date of that period that you require an extension. A number of people asking questions around compliance. What happens if they don't register? Essentially, if you don't register in accordance with the phases I've outlined today, then you will be in breach of the QASA regulations. The QASA regulations have now been made. They will be in version 8 of the handbook. So failure to not meet those regulations or to not register with the scheme and continue to undertake criminal advocacy will result in a breach of those regulations. As I mentioned before, we have data around what type of level we expect people to come in at. So a number of you are asking around the reasoned decision that I mentioned. Well, what we anticipate doing is just really doing an analysis of what people said that they were going, the level at which they were going to register at notification, their actual level, and if there's any huge discrepancies, we may well ask the advocate how they go about, what process they've taken in order to come to that decision. A number of you are asking questions around QASA and high rights of audience. QASA will not remove high rights of audience from any individual that currently has it. That's not the intention of QASA. High rights of audience is for life. If you currently have high rights of audience, crime or civil, that will remain unaffected. However, what QASA will do is say that if you wish to undertake criminal advocacy, you will need to be QASA accredited. So you will require QASA accreditation. In terms of how if you don't have high rights of audience currently and wish to obtain your high rights of audience in order to undertake work at level 2, 3 and 4, from early spring next year, we will be amalgamating the current high rights of assessment crime process with QASA accreditation level 2. So if you want to obtain your high rights of audience crime, at the same time as obtaining that, you will be assessed against QASA level 2, and at the end of that, if you've passed those, you'll be able to tell us whether or not you want high rights of audience crime and QASA level 2 accreditation. How you go about getting your high rights of audience civil remains unaffected by QASA. A lot of people are asking around questions around the availability of trials. What happens if I register at a level, for example, 2B, and within that 24-month period I can't obtain a number of trials? We believe the 24-month period now is adequate to allow advocates to obtain a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 3 trial opportunities. For those who've been following the development of QASA, originally it was only 12 months. As a result of the 4th consultation last year, there was very strong feedback that that time period was very short because A, the number of trials is decreasing, B, there's an increase in the number of trials being undertaken by recorders, and for advocates undertaking work at level 4, trials can last way beyond 12 months. So we think 24 months is an appropriate time frame. If you are struggling within that 24-month period to obtain the required number of trials, you can always request an extension. I talked about how you can do that. If you are, again, if you are really struggling, please contact us. We have a pool of independent assessors that can also be used to double mark an advocate in a particular trial. Now, we anticipate that these will probably be for individuals within small court circuit areas where there may be not particularly many trials, but also there aren't that many judges. So again, if you're struggling accessing trial opportunities, please do contact us, and we can try and help you get over that particular issue. A number of you have asked around, as from a firm's perspective, how can you know whether an advocate has registered or not? The responsibility is really on the advocate to register. Again, as I've mentioned, our rules and our regulations clearly state that you cannot undertake criminal advocacy without QASA accreditation. So we fully expect anyone wishing to undertake criminal advocacy to register with the scheme. If you want to check whether any of your solicitors have registered, you can contact us using any of the means I've described. We can have a look and we can check for you. There's a few questions around the number of trial opportunities in relation to why would an advocate need 3 trial opportunities or 3 criminal advocacy evaluation forms. Section 4 of the handbook describes the competence framework. The competence framework is essentially outlines how we go about, as the regulators, determining whether or not you are competent or not. So it kind of breaks it down against the standards. What we're really looking for is that thresholds in that competency framework are met. So basically that you are competent against core standards and you've got the right mixture of competencies against non-core standards. So the reason why there are potentially 3 trial opportunities is that you may not meet those thresholds and meet what the scheme's asking you to do in terms of competence over 2 trial opportunities. So we've allowed for an additional 3rd opportunity to give you kind of an increased chance to demonstrate your competence. But again, Section 4 of the handbook outlines the competence framework, but we're really trying to kind of give you an appropriate number of opportunities to meet the scheme's requirements. There's a couple of questions around what happens if you you wish to start undertaking criminal advocacy, you haven't done it previously, and you've missed the registration deadlines. That's okay. Just come and register with the scheme. The reason why we've got the regulations in place for the phases is to ensure that there's a kind of systematic way of getting all of the 12,000 advocates into the scheme. I think that covers the kind of the key hot topics that you've raised today. So thank you for participating. It's really helpful for us at the SRA to kind of hear what you're thinking and your thoughts. And what we'll do is take away these questions and incorporate these into our registration and, where appropriate, scheme Q&As. So in terms of registration, if you've got any sort of questions, either contact us or go to our website, where there are some registration. I think there's about 20 questions and answers which might help you understand the registration process a little bit more and bring to life some of these kind of key topics. So we're pretty much coming to the end of the allocated hour now. So thank you very much. Brilliant, and good luck.